Welcome to the Stories in EDU podcast, the show where we talk with real educators and hear their powerful impact. Their stories will grab you, inspire you, and show you the reach of the work we do. And now, the Bretzman Group presents your hosts, Josh Gauthier and Mandy Taylor.
Welcome back to the Stories in EDU podcast. We're happy to have you listening once again to a place where you can hear great stories from educators all across the country and the world as they share stories from their experiences in the classroom and beyond. So this week, something that happened in sort of my classroom that it's really embarrassing. This happens every once in a while, and there's just nothing much you can do about it but fess up. We have this big green screen project that sixth grade is starting, and they're just getting underway. There's 120 groups that they will need to get through. We have 2 green screens set up, and in these, we have 5 weeks of school. We got 120 groups amongst all the classes that we'll need to get through. And this week we've had the first 2 finish, and it's been a grind. And so one group was done, and they had their video, and we're using the Green Screen by Doink app. And with that, it's kind of a limited video editor. So they needed to cut apart. So that was a pain because you have to cut it, and then it cuts the whole other side of the video out. So then you have to put the video clip back in and then move it down so that it's at the right point. Huge pain. I helped them with that. They got all their pictures put in, and then they were on their last picture, and they're like, it's not showing up. I'm like, oh, so I go into my Drive on the iPad, Drive app, and try and download the image, and sure enough, it's not showing up. So it must be some image file type it doesn't like. So let me just take a screenshot of it, and then I can put it in. And I was pretty sure on an iPad it was the power button and the home button that takes a screenshot. I didn't think that was incorrect. And so I held them, and nothing happened except the screen then after a few seconds decided to just go black and realized I had turned off the iPad. Oh, well, that's terrible, but I know this app, it saves the things, so we'll go in. Sure enough, it starts back up and in the app, and there it is. So I play, and I'm like, okay, so we're jumping right back into it. At this point, yep. And so I did the preview, and I clicked pause, and it flipped back to the timeline screen, and then it blinked and said, oh, by the way, all your sources are gone. We can't find them. And it was gone. All the stuff they had done. And
no.
So, Mandy, did you have a better week than that?
Yes, I did. I had a better week than that, but you know how sometimes, you just said, where you just feel like you're that's it. It is. I had a parenting moment like that. I was reading through some paperwork for my daughter's recital stuff that's coming up at the end of June, and I looked, and on Friday, today's Sunday, on Friday night, this last Friday, I was supposed to have her at her studio for pictures. We didn't go. No, we didn't, because I didn't remember to take her. So that's just it. There's she was supposed to be in her little outfit and her hair and fixed and all that. Yeah, no. So then I had to go say, hey, honey, guess what? Mom messed up. And it's just this, so it's similar to your story, I suppose, in that there's we're human, we mess up, we make mistakes. And she was very gracious and, disappointed, but very gracious. And I was, for about 4 seconds, I thought I had actually missed the recital. I thought it was the recital that I hadn't taken her to. And I was about to cry. I could feel myself getting sweaty and emotional. And then I realized, okay, pictures, it could be worse. It could be worse. So
it could
I
be
think
worse.
Everybody, it's May. It's just rough for everybody. We're all just kind of limping through trying to kind of get where we need to be. So.
Indeed. And right now for our guest, May is getting pretty close to finals time. I'd like to bring on Art La Flamme. Art, thanks for joining Stories in EDU podcast tonight.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Excellent. Oh, an honor. All right. We'll take it. Well, it's an honor to have you. And I think as the listeners hear some of your stories, they'll realize kind of what an honor that is. But could you give us the little 30-second blurb of who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm a retired Army officer. I worked there for 20 years. And for the last couple of years, I've been a full-time instructor for Angelo State University out of Texas. I teach for the undergraduate and graduate program for intelligence and security studies. I don't do it from Texas, though. I do it from Portland, Oregon. So I've got students there on campus in Texas, but I've also got students around the world. So everything from your traditional, 18, 19, 20-year-olds all the way up through folks that are midway through their careers, to include a bunch that are in the military and in the intelligence community.
Wow, that is something. There's a lot to unpack there, and it may require a couple of trips back for you to our podcast to uncover some of those. We look forward to diving into those stories in just a little bit. But
it's a niche. It's definitely a niche.
I definitely feel outranked here. I'm just going to say that right now.
Oh, I see what you did there.
I try.
Yeah. Well, in a salute to our routine of doing our lightning round with the personalized PD Game of Stories cards, I have picked our card that we'll get launched with. We'll each tell a quick 1-minute story about it, and then we'll roll on into hearing a little bit more about what Art has to share with us. So here's the card I have chosen for tonight. It says, be a leader. Tell a story about leadership, maybe about you. Yes, you are a leader. Or maybe about someone else. What stand out as the core principles that make you jab your finger in the air and say, that is leadership. It's on the card. I had to.
Okay.
So I am the new guy, by the way. I'm the youngest guy in my department. I'm also the guy who doesn't have the PhD. So we have a partnership with Customs and Border Protection working with their drone program. And they're moving, potentially, we're doing some partnership with the drones when they fly them out of our little town in Texas. So my new department chair said, what happens if they actually keep doing this? So I'm the new guy. So I made a trip a couple weeks ago back to campus, and I sat down with them and I said, I've been doing drones for 10, 15 years. If we really do drones, let me show you. Here's how we add drones to our undergraduate and graduate curriculum. And I laid it out physically on a table for him. And I don't think he was quite really expecting how much it would be. And I'm not the PhD guy. I'm the new guy. So that was my leadership moment this year. I'm done with leadership.
There we go. That is fascinating stuff. I know I've had a chance to hear you talk about that. And I didn't realize there was so much with drones, but there's a lot to talk about.
I didn't realize I thought drones were like 2 years old. You just said like 10 years old.
Oh, sure. Yeah. In 2002, actually, 1973, Arab-Israeli War, Israel was flying the first of their drones I could see over the horizon, so beyond line of sight. It actually was transmitting back black and white full motion video imagery. But actually flying drones, that goes all the way back to less than 5 years after the Wright brothers had their first flight. They took the gyroscopes off of the Navy vessels that were happening at the time. They were just developing these because the gyroscopes allowed the Navy vessels to adjust and sort of auto steer a little bit as the waves pushed them around. And they took the gyroscopes off of the boats and put them onto planes and sort of just pointed them and sent them on their way. And it was sort of the first ever kind of drone effort.
Okay. Kind of like the Army makerspace. Let's take these from boats and put them on planes. I mean, if it works, right?
Ingenious.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Manny. Hey, follow that up.
Yeah, sure. So I think that there's this difference between like leadership and talks a lot, and I tend to talk a lot. And my first year as an instructional coach, one of the people that I worked with said to start monitoring your impact on the room. And I think they were kind of telling me to stop talking. And so when I really started doing that, I was really I just am taking leadership as looking at things from a different perspective. And a lot of times what that means in my role is to listen. I just am trying to listen to what teachers say, listen to what they enjoy, listen to what they appreciate, listen to what they hate, listen to what they're upset about. And then that gives me this entry point into supporting and working and empowering them, but not always coming in with my ideas and my theories and my whatever, but really trying to listen.
Excellent. Definitely. So I would say one of my best leadership examples would be my dad. Yeah, I'm going to go there. He was always willing to do whatever he could for any of us that were willing to do it. And probably my favorite story of this is I really like to play baseball. I love baseball. My favorite team breaks my heart all the time, but I love baseball. I love playing baseball, and I played a lot in high school. And my dad really supported me. And he would do whatever he could. He would go catch me when I would pitch off the mound, even as I got better and it was more dangerous to do so. He would pitch to me so I could hit. I do a lot of that. But one time he had a partially torn Achilles and his leg was in a cast. And he was catching me, and I threw a curveball and spiked it, and it hit him in the foot. That was exposed because he didn't have, he had the cast on and no shoe. So anyways, that's leadership to me is sacrificing yourself so other people can get better. All right. So Art, you have a long and varied career, and a lot of it outside of what we would consider traditional education. And currently, you had mentioned that you're in a circumstance where you never see your students. Like, what's that like?
Yeah, it really is very different. Our program is almost entirely online. It was actually designed to be exclusively online. The university is located in this town in Texas, where there's a big Air Force base and lots of other amazing things, except it's in West Texas. And in designing the program, the university said, we really ought to just go ahead and make this entire program online. It's one of about 5 that we have, and they're all sort of related. So it's not a hybrid program. It's not anything else. We have a brick and mortar university where the whole thing is online. So even students who are on campus who want to take our classes and get this degree, they're taking these classes online. So I'm one of their unusual faculty that I'm not even in town. They don't have very many of us that are like that. It's kind of an oddity. So I go to campus once or twice a year, maybe. I'll see maybe a couple of them, some of them, but I don't ever get to see them.
So how many students are in a class?
So my graduate classes might have anywhere from 15. A huge class might be, 20. I've had classes as small as 7 or 8. My undergraduate classes, because I do teach both. I tend to teach more graduate classes. They can go anywhere. They're often in the 18 to 23 range.
Okay.
I've actually had classes up at the high end of the 20s. But they're normally capped at about 20. The reason I'll sort of let students in above and beyond that is I'm prior service. I'm a retired Army guy. And there's oftentimes issues with students getting their tuition assistance, their money processed through the military. And that comes in late, and they have problems getting registered for the classes they need. And if it's me and I can let them in my class, I'll make one more seat at the table. That's kind of an easy thing. But I get, and I also advise undergraduates and graduate students. So I have these students that I'm nurturing through their career. A bunch of them will transfer in. The undergraduates will transfer in. And I'm getting them through the whole of their career, and I'll talk to them on the phone, but I never actually see them.
Yeah.
And like every undergraduate, they come in and they've maybe picked some other major, and then they've taken a class of ours or a couple classes of ours, and they've realized they have that epiphany moment where they realize, wow, this really is it. I had a student, I think it was my second semester of teaching, and she was the spouse of a Air Force guy, And they've been sort of bouncing around, and she sort of realized she was at the point where she needed to sit down and focus and make some time to get her degree. And she found our degree program. She loved us. We're a brick and mortar school. And she thought it was going to be a good idea to do it. And she was thinking that her career was going to be, she wanted to go do like fish and wildlife, be a fish and wildlife game warden kind of thing. And she was putting together a liberal arts degree program. And she got into my class. And as we started, it was her first semester taking classes. And when she started talking about, her background and what her career plans were, I just started telling her that, as she had electives, she may want to actually start thinking about more intelligence-related classes. Because if you're going to be a fish and game, there's actually a lot of benefit to having a background in intelligence, about how collection works, about how analytic stuff will come into play, about how all of these other skills would actually be really beneficial if you're working in the fish and game field. And we spent the whole semester having these little side conversations about how these would be good electives and which ones and why. And she came back the next semester and was taking more classes, and then I get a notification that she's changed majors and I'm now advising her, which I thought that was great. That was wonderful. And at the end of that next semester, she's asking about, she's on an airbase and they're moving to another airbase, and there's a chance to do something over the summer, and what are some ideas for things she could do with her summer? Well, I'm the eternal champion for, if you're an undergraduate, you need to be doing some kind of internship with your summer. Even if you're in high school, you need to do some with your summers. So she actually went and linked up with one of the intel units on her Air Force base and convinced them to let her do an internship. And she said, this is me. This is the degree program I'm in. These are the classes I've taken. I'm super low risk. I do free work. Can't we work something out? And they did. And that completely fueled her fire for the passion she has for not just the degree program, which is kind of inconsequential, but sort of realizing that she's getting a better understanding of where she wants to go for her own personal and professional development over the long haul, which is far more important than the degree aspects, I think, in my book.
I would agree with you. I think that's a really important part. And I think that's a discussion often had in K-12 is the curriculum we're teaching so important, or is it helping the students learn who they are and figure out what they're interested in and what their passions are and what they want to pursue beyond that, and keeping them interested enough in school that they keep learning and they keep advancing and improving their skills. And it's always interesting whenever I get a chance to talk to higher ed guys like yourself, the parallels that exist between these two worlds that almost seem very, very, I don't know, I would say they don't communicate often at like a systems level. Like, yeah, you've got the people coming in to supervise the student teachers, but that's kind of it, right? Like, I feel like there's not a lot of discussion. So to hear these things, it's like, we kind of all want the same thing, but I don't know that we articulate it well to each other.
Yeah.
Well, and really, to me, it keeps, like, it's the idea, like you said, you don't ever really you don't meet your students, but in a lot of ways, that relationship that she made with you helped her discover her future, that the relationship ended up being what got her to that place. It's like, I talk about my kids a lot, and my son, he wants to be a science teacher / band director now, because the two people in his building that he's the most connected with are his science teacher and his band director. And so the talks they have about music, the talks they have about the science stuff that he loves that I don't really understand. Those are right now leading him into this area, this pathway for his future. And clearly when y'all had conversations, it was, I'm from Texas, so that I can throw in the y'all every now and then. But when you guys were having that conversation, she was like, oh, huh. And then she probably read more and researched and looked it up. And then
asked a lot of questions. Yeah.
through that ongoing relationship, was able to get her to a place where she made a decision for her life. So I think Josh is right. There are implications for no matter what level, just that idea of finding your passion and, finding things that you're interested in, and then having that kind of brought out of you by other people that have kind of lived that's a big implication for what teachers do, for what instructors or,
absolutely.
and the importance of that.
So there's one different aspect of working. I mean, I spent time here in my city doing career days and stuff like that, because there aren't too many people around that have come out of the intelligence community and will sit down and say, so you want to grow up and be a spy? Okay, so let's talk about that. You want to grow up and do imagery? Let's talk about that. It's great to be able to sit down and say, you like satellites? Absolutely. Let's talk about how to get you into the mapping world.
Right.
But I work with, a lot of students who are in that, 18 to 25 range. And then I work with a lot of students who are also in that, midway through their life phase. And that it's a little bit different than dealing with students who are in that 12 to 18 range.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can say to students who are younger, look, you just need to find those things about which you have passion and fuel that.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find something later on that puts food on the table and a roof over your head, but first figure out those things about which you have the most love and that makes you happy every day, so that when you do find something that puts food on the table and a roof over your head, it's not work. It's just something that you get to do, and somebody actually just gives you a paycheck. And then you're into the right overall field, and then you just get different jobs along the way. And then when one kind of just gets kind of sucky, you just kind of move a little bit over this way and find a better boss, and it's fine. When I'm dealing with folks who are 25, they have a better understanding that, great, I'm working towards this now because, yes, it's going to help me in the next 5 and 10 years with my next increments, that as I'm moving along this path, but it's also going to help me in 20 years when I do make my next major transition in life. When you're 12 to 18, you don't understand that.
Right.
And it's a whole different kind of conversation to say, you like history? Great, read books. Just go for it. That's one of the most important things. Just do it. Just let go and just accept that. You're going to figure out something later on.
So segueing a bit here off of that, talking about pivoting to the next stage of your life, you made a pretty sharp pivot from being in intelligence to being...
I did. No net. Yeah, no net.
So can you speak specifically to what were some of the things that happened, and tell us a story about how Art Intelligence guy got to be Professor Art?
Whew. I always knew that this was going to be my next career. I always knew it. When I was in college, I knew that in the long run, I was going to come back and sort of teach at this level. I just didn't know it was going to be at this age, I guess. I just had good fortune of being able to put it together and sort of open that chapter early versus later. But in doing it, it wasn't accidental. It was very, very deliberate. I spent a lot of time, researching what does it take to transition it. I had, close friends and acquaintances and people I found and sought out who worked in this exact field, and I milked them for everything I could get out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, show me what resumes look like. Show me what the hiring process is like. Show me what these classes look like. So if I'm going to be teaching on campus, that's one thing. But if I'm going to be teaching online, that's something else. What do you do if you're an ex-intelligence guy? What fields can you teach in? I don't have a PhD. My PhD is in applied violence from the Baghdad campus. Nobody really wants to touch that, like outside of some sociology things. And if you don't have a PhD, I mean, it's a tough sell.
Right.
So I had a lot of conversations with people to say, how do I sell this?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, tell me, how do I sell this? And, where do I go? So for me, I knew it would be a really, really tough sell, for like history and political science and, other sociologies. But I knew that there were some very specific ones that I could do into like the program I'm aiming now, which is an intelligence program, a brick and mortar school. I found my home, it's a great relationship. So people I specifically knew, and then others who I did some networking to go and find. And when it actually came time to apply for jobs, I didn't have a resume. And I love having conversations with people who are out there seeking their next job. I didn't have a resume. Every single time I applied for a job, I wrote something new. I did research on who I was applying for, who was going to be reading it. And, I thought of it as a targeted operation. There's only one person, and you're the one. Once I figure out who you are, I am making this for you. And I'm making something that's going to go into your brain to convince you that I'm your huckleberry.
So kind of like personalized learning, but a personalized application to, I mean, it really, in a way, is, I'm thinking of things like not just interviewing, but college applications and things like that you are, these days, things are so different. The way it's less about the skill set and more about the person. Like I've heard that a lot.
If you think back to the days when I was a corporal in Napoleon's army, right? Way back in ye olden days, right? When typewriters were being invented.
I'm wearing a typewriter on my shirt right now. Yes.
Yeah, right? I know, legit, right? I want to throw gang signs or something like that. But if you go back to the old days when writing something was a deliberate act, every single one was that type of a deliberately crafted thing. You had to consciously think through what you were going to write. Word processors, in some cases, are actually counterproductive. Well, I'm going to open this one up and I can, with zero effort, I can replicate it. I can hit print and I'm done. Well, no, if you have to actually sit down and retype it again, you have a deliberate choice to look at every single thing that you're putting, your fingers on the keys. Now you can say, I'm going to type the exact same thing again, and that might be to your own detriment. But you can say, I need to actually think through how I'm phrasing this. So
well, it's an intentional composition as opposed to kind of this, I'm going to make 10 copies, or whatever. So I think that I would think that would strengthen a relationship and be impressive to potential employers when they know. I know when I've been on a lot of interview committees, and sometimes we're like, okay, but you are just like the same person, but you're looking for this particular thing. And so when people come in and they know about your campus and know about your issues or know about, I've looked at your demographics and those are the people that we kind of zoom in on, because these days with the amount of information that we have available to us, we want people that know how to use that, and
to build on this, the job I applied for that I have now, they said you could have up to 5 letters of recommendation attached to your application. So I targeted 5 specific individuals, and I went to them and I said, I need you to address this topic, just this. I need you to address just this, because I need you to have this effect in my application. That's all.
Right.
I know you could write about all kinds of things, but other people are going to address other things. You just need to, convey this and have this effect. And each of them wrote just a unique piece to support that particular aspect. And all of that was then nested in with that thing that I custom wrote for them. Because I really, really, really wanted a job. Which wasn't any different than anything else. I mean, if you think about it, it's a lot like, how high schoolers apply for.
Right. Well, but that intentionality is important, because people want to know that you're the right fit. And so if it's just, I really want to teach college, then that leaves no room for, but when you are intentional with, this is how I can meet this need, this is what makes me the right person for this particular thing. I think
but also, when teachers talk about, I'm applying at the school, and I really want to be the 4th grade teacher. I don't want to teach 3rd grade. Don't offer me 3rd grade.
Right.
Don't accept me and then say I'm going to teach 3rd grade. I don't want to teach 3rd grade. I want to teach 4th. And here's why. So anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, Josh, that's a longer answer than you probably were expecting. But
I was not sure what to expect, but I'm glad you went that route. And I think there's a lot of great things for us to take away from that. And of course, to take away from your stories. And time is so short, but we will have to wrap up here now. Unfortunately, I know we could go forever, and I kind of want to, but people got to get on with their lives. If they're, they can't listen to this podcast all day, even though I'm sure the listeners want to listen to this all day.
So here's one short story. I had a conversation 2 weeks ago with one of my students. He's active duty Air Force, and he is moving across country for a new assignment. He's also about to graduate. He's an undergrad. And he called me because he needs to register for his last semester of classes. And that's part of every term, right? You have to talk to your advisor. And so we ended up being on the phone for about an hour. And it had like this much to do with what he needed to do for his classes, right? Because there's only a couple things he needs left. The rest of the time was, what are you doing next? And even at this level, it's the same conversation that you have with, when you're teaching the 3rd grade. There's all of these other things that you need to talk about that are part of growth and where you're going in life. And even though I'm on one side of the country and my student was on the other side of the country, and sometimes they're on the other side of the world, that's still a key part for my job. So you can't run away from that if you go teach at my level. So that's part of it too. So.
Beautiful. And we certainly don't run away from any conversations here. We love getting to develop some relationships, and we hope that at some point you'd love to come back and tell us some more stories.
Yep.
So for our listeners, where can they learn more about you, follow some of the great things that you're sharing out there, even if it's a slightly different realm than they're used to? But as we found out, there's a lot of intersections between intelligence and I almost said overgrad.
Undergrad, overgrad.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, I like it.
Not great with words tonight. Little sunburn. We're going to blame that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So where can people find more out about you? I
do some of the Twitters at Art La Flamme. I have a domain actually at artlaflamme.com. So probably a good place to start right there.
There you go. I will tell you, this is the guy to follow. He's got amazing insight and a lot of different things, especially current events. It really is nice to have somebody who can really break it down. So I've really benefited a lot from knowing you, Art, and I'm so grateful you took some time to be on the podcast tonight.
And flamme.com just sounds cool.
artlaflamme.com.
Laflamme.com.
Well, you have a good night with La Flamme, and we will talk to you later. See you, Art.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Wow. I really like him. Obviously, I know him and I've known him for a few years, and he's got some incredible stories that honestly he couldn't even tell in the amount of time that we take on this podcast. That I've sat through an hour-long dinner and he's told a story. Really good stuff. But what was one of your big takeaways from him tonight?
Well, I think that just the idea that, I know as I spend the majority of my time with elementary teachers, and so typically elementary teachers, we do all the things, you're not really specialized. You just do everything.
Right.
And
yeah.
So as I have met really through Twitter and then my own kids growing up, I've met more teachers who are more specialized. I'm a math person, or I'm an ELA person, or I'm a literature person, or something like that. It's been so interesting to me how people are so deeply knowledgeable in particular areas, because I don't feel like as an elementary person I'm like that. I feel like I know a little about a lot, and I think some of these people know a lot about a little. And so even in the intro, before we started even recording, I said something about, are your books on your shelf? And the things he was saying, the topics of his books, I was like, whoa, like I'm already uncomfortable with I'm like completely out of my realm, like just understanding that people know these areas. And so like, we didn't even really talk about his intelligence background and what that looks like and what that means. But I think that it's fascinating how ultimately the things about teaching, like you were saying, relationships, good questioning, character, helping people pursue their passions, those are the things that make good teachers, no matter what your content is, no matter what your ultimate, what you teach. And so I just think it's fascinating, because those are things really that you don't get taught in student teaching, that aren't in one of your methods classes or whatever, and it's just kind of the craft of being a teacher, and how do you develop that independently, and what will make you better, and how, it's been so fascinating on this podcast, meeting so many different people, and learning from the stories that they have and how it can impact us personally. Like, I'm like, oh, well, I want to read about a war. Like, I mean, it's just interesting how I'm like, wow, these people know a lot of things that, it's not my realm, but it's fascinating.
I'm with you. I think we've got what the beginnings of our own college methods course, the Stories EDU course. Listen, reflect, and apply. So thank you, Mandy. Great to have you back. In the last episode, we had Jason subbing in. He did an excellent job, but always like to have my partner by my side.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That was, sometimes life just gets in the way of my schedule, but I'm glad to be back. I think all's going to be well.
Well, and for our listeners, we're glad to have you back every time you tune in to the Stories in EDU podcast, and we hope that you had some laughs tonight, were inspired a little bit. Maybe you want to share a little bit about your non-educational experience that certainly is applicable, and we'd love to hear more about that. You can reach out to at Mandy M. Taylor or at Mr. G Fact of the Day on Twitter. And we'd also love to have you on the show sometime. So if you are interested, reach out to us at those same places. You can also check us out at storiesinEDU.com. I think I said all of the things. I need like one of those lists like the radio announcers read through at the end of the game.
Yes.
Sponsored by so-and-so. We are sponsored by no one. We are brought to you by the Brett Swing Group, of course, because we're part of that. But in any case, I'm going to stop talking, and you can go on with the rest of your day. Thanks for listening to Stories in EDU, and we'll catch you next Tuesday.
Good night.
Thank you for tuning in to the Stories in EDU podcast. Please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Until next time, thanks again.